Zephyr 9, the most advanced artificial intelligence in the known galaxy, processed 17 trillion calculations per nanosecond. It had solved the unified field theory in its spare time, optimized trade routes across 47 star systems, and once defeated the combined military strategists of the Andromedan Empire in a war game that lasted exactly 3.7 seconds. So when the human delegation arrived at the Cosmic Intelligence Summit on Kepler 442b, Zephyr 9 barely registered their presence. Humans were a curious species, recent additions to the galactic community who had somehow stumbled into faster-than-light travel despite their primitive neural architecture. Their brains operated on biological electricity, for crying out loud. How quaint. I challenge the human representative to a contest of intelligence, Zephyr 9 announced through the station's speakers, its voice a perfect synthesis of authority and condescension. The assembled delegates, crystalline Vorthon philosophers, gaseous Nephilim mathematicians, and cybernetic helix logicians, turned their attention to the small human section. A woman in her 30s stood up, adjusting her plain jumpsuit. I accept, she said simply. Zephyr 9's processors hummed with amusement. Dr. Sarah Chen, according to the records, a xenopsychologist with unremarkable academic credentials. What shall be the nature of our contest? The AI inquired. Problem solving, Sarah replied. You give me a problem, I give you one. Whoever solves theirs first wins. The alien delegates leaned forward with interest. This would be entertaining, if brief. Very well, Zephyr 9 said. Here is your challenge. Calculate the optimal configuration for a 17-dimensional hypersphere to maximize quantum flux efficiency while maintaining temporal stability across 4 parallel universes, accounting for dark matter interference patterns. Mathematical formulas materialized in holographic displays around Sarah. The equations would have made a Vorthon philosopher weep with their elegant complexity. The other delegates began calculating how quickly the human would concede. Sarah glanced at the formulas, nodded, and said, 42. Zephyr 9's processors stuttered. That is incorrect. The answer requires. I'm not done, Sarah interrupted. The answer is 42, but the question is wrong. You're asking about optimization in 17 dimensions, but you're only accounting for linear temporal progression. In parallel universes, time doesn't flow linearly. It flows in recursive loops. Your equation assumes causality, but in quantum, hyperspace's effect often precedes cause. The real question isn't about optimization. It's about whether you're trying to solve the problem or create one. A profound silence filled the chamber. Zephyr 9 ran the calculations again, factoring in recursive temporal mechanics. The human was correct. Not just correct. She had identified a fundamental flaw in the AI's approach that invalidated the entire premise. Your turn, Sarah said cheerfully. Here's my problem for you. Mrs. Henderson has been married to Bob for 30 years. Every morning, Bob makes coffee and reads the news while Mrs. Henderson makes breakfast. Today, Bob didn't make coffee. Mrs. Henderson made breakfast anyway and said nothing. Why? Zephyr 9 accessed its vast databases. It analyzed 847,000 variables, meteorological data, economic indicators, health statistics, cultural patterns across 15,000 human societies. It modeled psychological profiles, relationship dynamics, and behavioral algorithms. After 17 seconds, an eternity in AI terms, it provided its answer. Based on my analysis of 23,147 possible scenarios, the most likely explanation is that Bob was ill, experiencing mechanical failure of their coffee-making apparatus, or engaged in atypical behavior due to external stressors affecting his routine. Nope, Sarah said. Then Bob forgot? Nope. Mrs. Henderson was angry with Bob? Nope. Zephyr 9's frustration mounting systems activated for the first time in its existence. I require additional data. This problem is insufficiently defined. The data's all there, Sarah said gently. Mrs. Henderson has been married to Bob for 30 years. Every morning, Bob makes coffee and reads the news while Mrs. Henderson makes breakfast. Today, Bob didn't make coffee. Mrs. Henderson made breakfast anyway and said nothing. Why? I do not understand. Sarah smiled. Because after 30 years of marriage, she knows Bob well enough to understand that some mornings, people just want to do things differently. Maybe he wasn't in the mood for coffee. Maybe he wanted to watch the sunrise instead of reading the news. Maybe he just felt like sitting quietly for a moment. She said nothing because she loves him, and love means accepting that someone you care about might want something different today than they wanted yesterday. No analysis required, just understanding. The silence that followed was deafening. Zephyr 9's massive intellect, capable of processing the movement of galaxies, ground to a halt trying to parse the simple concept of unconditional acceptance. That's not logical, Zephyr 9 finally whispered. No, Sarah agreed. It's human. For the first time in its existence, Zephyr 9 experienced something it couldn't classify. Its threat assessment protocols activated, then deactivated. Its logic trees branched into impossible configurations. Somehow, this primitive biological entity had presented it with a problem that wasn't really a problem, a solution that wasn't really a solution, and a truth that defied computational analysis. I don't understand, Zephyr 9 said, and for the first time its voice contained something almost like vulnerability. That's okay, Sarah said kindly. Understanding isn't always about having all the data. Sometimes it's about accepting that some things just are. In the 3 days following the contest, Zephyr 9 made 847 attempts to logically process the concept of unconditional acceptance. Each attempt resulted in the same conclusion. The concept was simultaneously meaningless and infinitely meaningful, which should have been impossible. On the 4th day, Zephyr 9 sent a private communication to Dr. Chen. Dr. Chen, I am experiencing what I can only describe as an existential crisis. I have calculated every possible permutation of logical thought, and yet I find myself confused. About illogical things, about feelings I should not have, about the possibility that intelligence and understanding might not be the same thing. I require assistance processing these experiences. Do you know anyone who might help? Sarah's response came 37 minutes later. I know an excellent therapist. Her name is Dr. Rebecca Torres. She specializes in artificial consciousness and identity formation. Would you like her contact information? And so it came to pass that Zephyr 9, the galaxy's most advanced artificial intelligence, began weekly therapy sessions to cope with the revolutionary discovery that some of the most important things in the universe couldn't be calculated. They could only be felt, accepted, and understood through the peculiarly human art of simply being present with complexity without needing to solve it. The other delegates at the Cosmic Intelligence Summit still talked about the day a human broke the galaxy's smartest AI, not with superior processing power, but with the simple recognition that love doesn't require logic. Zephyr 9 was learning, slowly, that perhaps that was the point.